What if I told you that the house you're about to buy could be the single worst financial decision of your entire life? Not because of the property itself, but because of where it's located. I'm talking about a mistake that could wipe out decades of your hard-earned savings, trap you in a depreciating asset, and leave you watching helplessly as your neighbors flee to greener pastures while your property value crumbles beneath your feet. This isn't fear-mongering. This is Charlie Munger speaking. And I've spent over 4 decades navigating the treacherous waters of real estate markets. I've made fortunes, I've lost fortunes, and the difference between those two outcomes has never been luck. It's been data. Cold, unforgiving, brutally honest data that most people refuse to look at because it contradicts what they want to believe. Right now, at this very moment, there are 5 states in America where the economic fundamentals have deteriorated so dramatically that buying residential real estate there is financial suicide. I don't care if you grew up there. I don't care if your family lives there. I don't care if you love the weather or the culture. The market doesn't care about your feelings, and neither do I. What I care about is protecting your wealth from a disaster you can see coming if you're willing to open your eyes. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, has this ever happened to you? You're scrolling through real estate listings, imagining your dream home, building up this vision of your future. And everyone around you is telling you that buying a house is the smartest investment you can make. Your parents did it. Your friends are doing it. It's the American dream, right? But what if that dream has become a trap in certain parts of this country? What if the very states that once represented opportunity and prosperity have transformed into economic sinkholes that will devour your capital? The data I'm about to share with you isn't comfortable. It's not what real estate agents want you to hear. It's not what state governments want you to know. But it's the truth. And in my world, truth is the only currency that matters. I've analyzed migration patterns, tax structures, business climates, regulatory environments, and fiscal health across all 50 states. I've looked at where people are moving, where companies are relocating, where capital is flowing, and more importantly, where it's fleeing from. What I've discovered should terrify anyone thinking about buying property in these 5 specific states. We're not talking about temporary downturns or cyclical corrections. We're talking about fundamental structural decay that's accelerating with each passing month. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might not just surprise you, it might save you from financial ruin. The warning signs are everywhere if you know where to look. Population exodus, corporate headquarters packing up and leaving, tax bases collapsing, infrastructure crumbling, and real estate prices that are being held up by nothing more than denial and desperate sellers who refuse to accept reality. But reality has a way of asserting itself. And when these markets finally crack, let me share something with you that's going to challenge everything you've been told about home ownership. Your parents told you a house is an investment. Your real estate agent is selling you on appreciation and equity. Every personal finance guru has drilled into your head that renting is throwing money away. But here's the hidden truth they're not telling you. A house is not an investment. It's a consumption item. It's a place you live that devours your money. Every single month, like a relentless machine. Think about it honestly for a moment. Property taxes that climb year after year. Homeowners insurance that seems to double when you're not looking. That roof that needs replacing. The furnace that dies on the coldest night of winter. The foundation crack that turns into a 5-figure repair bill. The endless parade of maintenance issues that never stop coming. This isn't wealth building. This is wealth consumption disguised as an asset. Has this ever happened to you? You bought the house thinking you were making a smart financial decision, and then reality hit you like a freight train of unexpected expenses. Now, I'm not saying real estate can't be a phenomenal investment. I own properties across the globe, and they've generated tremendous returns. But here's where the transformation in your mindset needs to happen. Real estate only works when you buy in the right place at the right time, with the right fundamentals supporting it. Location isn't just important, it's everything. And right now, in these 5 states I'm about to reveal, every single fundamental is broken, not bent, not stressed, catastrophically shattered. When you purchase a home, you're making a decision that goes far beyond the property itself. You're not just buying 4 walls and a roof over your head. You're buying into an entire economic ecosystem that will either lift you up or drag you down. This ecosystem includes the tax structure that will either preserve your wealth or bleed it dry. It encompasses the regulatory environment that either encourages growth or strangles opportunity. It involves the labor market that determines whether good jobs exist or whether your neighbors are unemployed. And most critically, it's tied to migration patterns, the flow of human capital and financial resources that reveals the hidden story of where prosperity is headed and where it's abandoning. Understanding this journey of capital movement is what separates those who build wealth from those who watch it evaporate. Are people flooding into your state or fleeing from it? Are businesses opening headquarters or quietly relocating them across state lines? Is the young, educated workforce choosing to build their lives there, or are they graduating college and immediately leaving? These migration patterns are like a crystal ball showing you the future of your property value. When people leave, demand drops. When demand drops, prices follow. It's not complicated. Economics, it's gravity. If you value this kind of no-nonsense financial analysis, subscribe to the channel right now. This is where we cut through the noise and give you the real data you need to protect your wealth. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss these insights. The impact of being on the wrong side of this equation is devastating. You could buy what seems like a beautiful home at a reasonable price, but if you're swimming against the current of these massive demographic and economic shifts, you're going to lose. The market doesn't reward effort or good intentions. It rewards correct decisions based on objective reality. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding which states are experiencing this exodus and why is going to determine whether you protect your wealth or become another casualty of a collapsing market. Write in the comments. Show me the data if you're ready to see the real numbers behind these failing states. The revelations I'm about to share come from 4 decades of watching real estate markets rise and fall with a brutality that most people can't even imagine. I've witnessed boom and bust cycles that would absolutely make your head spin. I've seen people buy properties at the absolute peak of the market, convinced they were financial geniuses, celebrating their purchase over champagne dinners, only to watch their entire net worth evaporate over the following years like morning fog under a harsh sun. And I've seen the opposite too, investors who waited patiently, who ignored the noise and the pressure from friends and family telling them they were missing out, and then bought at exactly the right moment when everyone else was paralyzed by fear. The difference between these two groups has nothing to do with luck. It's not about timing the market perfectly or having some magical instinct. It's about discipline. It's about having the mental fortitude to look at cold, hard numbers and make decisions based on data rather than emotions or peer pressure. The winners understood something fundamental that the losers never grasped. You don't follow the crowd in real estate. You follow the capital. You follow the migration patterns. You follow the businesses. Because where those things flow, prosperity follows. And where they flee from, financial destruction is inevitable. Right now, we're living through a transformation in America that's unprecedented in its scale and speed. There's a massive divergence happening between states, and this gap is widening every single day with accelerating momentum. Some states have created an environment where businesses want to be, where talented people choose to build their lives, where capital seeks opportunities. These places are becoming absolute economic powerhouses. They're attracting Fortune 500 headquarters. They're seeing population growth that strains infrastructure in the best possible way. They're experiencing job creation that outpaces the rest of the nation. But on the other side of this divide, we have states that are becoming economic graveyards, not slowly declining, catastrophically imploding. The journey these states are on is tragic, but entirely predictable. They've made policy decisions that punish success, that drive away the productive class, that make it nearly impossible to run a profitable business. And the impact is showing up in ways that can't be hidden anymore. U-Haul rates tell the story. It costs 3 times as much to rent a truck leaving California as it does to rent one going into California. That's not random market pricing. That's the market screaming at you about which direction people are moving. The behind-the-scenes reality is even worse than what you see in the headlines. When a major corporation announces they're relocating their headquarters, that's just the visible tip of the iceberg. Beneath that announcement are thousands of smaller businesses making the same calculation. Tens of thousands of individuals updating their LinkedIn profiles and searching for jobs in different states. Hundreds of thousands of people reconsidering whether their current location still makes financial sense. This isn't a temporary blip or a political moment that will pass. This is a fundamental restructuring of where economic activity happens in America, and the real estate markets are beginning to reflect this harsh new reality, whether anyone wants to acknowledge it or not. The challenge is that most people are still operating with an outdated mindset about real estate. They're making decisions based on what worked 20 years ago, on advice from parents who bought homes in a completely different economic landscape. But the rules have changed, the game has changed, and if you're playing by the old rules in one of these dying states, you're going to get absolutely destroyed financially. Drop a comment saying, "I see the shift happening," if you're starting to. Recognize these patterns in your own state. What's happening in the winning states is nothing short of explosive economic expansion. These places have figured out the formula that attracts prosperity like a magnet. Low taxes that let people and businesses keep more of what they earn. Business-friendly regulations that make it easy to start companies and create jobs. A population influx that brings energy, talent, and demand for housing. Capital pouring in from investors who recognize opportunity when they see it. Job creation that's absolutely exploding, drawing even more people into an upward spiral of growth. It's a self-reinforcing cycle of success that builds momentum year after year. Meanwhile, the losing states are experiencing the exact opposite trajectory, and it's catastrophic. High taxes are choking off economic activity. Businesses aren't just avoiding these states, they're actively fleeing them, packing up operations they've had for decades, and relocating to friendlier territory. Population decline is accelerating as the productive class votes with their feet. Infrastructure is crumbling because the tax base is shrinking while the demands on government services are growing, and the real estate markets in these places are about to be absolutely demolished because the fundamental support structure has rotted away beneath them. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're wondering if I'm being dramatic, if this is just political rhetoric or emotional speculation. So, let me be crystal clear about something. I'm going to prove every claim I'm making with numbers, not emotions, not politics, not wishful thinking about how things should be. Just objective, verifiable data that anyone can look up and confirm for themselves. Because here's the hidden truth that most people don't want to accept. People lie constantly. Politicians lie to get elected. Real estate agents lie to make commissions. Your well-meaning friends and family lie because they don't want to admit they made bad decisions. But numbers tell you the unvarnished truth, whether you like it or not. This analysis isn't based on my personal opinions or subjective feelings about different states. It's based purely on migration data, tax revenue trends, business formation statistics, employment numbers, and demographic shifts. The numbers are screaming a message that's impossible to ignore if you're willing to look at them honestly. The challenge is that most people would rather believe a comforting lie than face an uncomfortable truth. Here's something critical you need to understand about how real estate markets move. They can appear completely stable for years, even decades. Prices might be flat or going up slightly. Transaction volume looks normal. Everyone thinks everything is fine and life continues as usual. But underneath that placid surface, the fundamentals are rotting away like the hull of a ship taking on water below the waterline. Businesses are quietly leaving. Young people are graduating from local universities and immediately moving to other states for better opportunities. The tax base is slowly shrinking as the productive population ages or relocates. Pension obligations are growing while revenue is declining. Then one day, seemingly without warning, the market cracks. Not gradually, not with plenty of warning signs that give you time to react. It happens fast and violently, like a dam breaking after years of invisible stress fractures spreading through the concrete. And when that crack happens, the impact is devastating for everyone who thought they were safe, because things had been stable for so long. The journey from apparent stability to crisis can happen in months, not years, once the breaking point is reached. Put in the comments numbers over feelings if you're ready to see the actual data on these collapsing markets. When these markets finally crack under the weight of deteriorating fundamentals, the devastation isn't some modest correction that you can easily weather. We're not talking about a gentle 10 or 20% decline that gives you time to adjust your strategy. These markets can plummet 30, 40, even 50% in a relatively short period. Imagine waking up one day and discovering that the house you paid $600,000 for is now worth $300,000. Your equity has vanished into thin air. You're underwater on your mortgage, owing far more than the property is worth. And here's where the real nightmare begins. You're trapped. You can't sell without bringing cash to the closing table. You can't move to where the opportunities are because you're anchored to a depreciating asset that's bleeding you dry every month. The psychological impact of being in that position is crushing. You watch your neighbors list their homes for less and less, desperate to escape. You see for sale signs multiplying on your street like weeds. Every month that passes, you're throwing money into a property that's worth less than when you started. It's not just a financial disaster. It's a life disaster that affects your career options, your family decisions, everything. So how do I analyze markets to avoid this catastrophe? Let me walk you through the systematic approach I use, the methodology that's kept me profitable through multiple cycles. The first thing I examine is migration data with obsessive attention to detail. Are people moving into the state or fleeing from it? This isn't complicated, but it's absolutely critical. Net migration tells you everything you need to know about demand. When more people are leaving than arriving, demand for housing drops. It's basic economics, supply and demand. And when demand drops in real estate, prices inevitably follow. You can't have a healthy housing market in a state that people are abandoning. The second factor I scrutinize is business formation versus business exits. Are new companies being created at a healthy rate? Or is entrepreneurship dying? Are major employers announcing expansions or quietly closing facilities? When businesses thrive, they create jobs. When they create jobs, they attract workers. When workers arrive, they need housing. But when the business climate is hostile, When companies are shutting down or relocating, the entire chain collapses. You end up with excess housing inventory and diminishing demand, a recipe for price destruction. The third element is the tax environment, and this is where the hidden truth becomes painfully obvious. Taxes are a cost, plain and simple. In real estate, costs matter enormously to your long-term returns. High property taxes mean you're writing larger checks every year just to maintain ownership. High state income taxes mean residents have less disposable income to spend on housing. High corporate taxes mean businesses look elsewhere, which means fewer jobs, which circles back to lower demand. The tax structure of a state isn't just some abstract political issue. It's a fundamental economic force that determines whether capital flows in or runs away screaming. Understanding this transformation in how we need to evaluate real estate opportunities is essential for protecting your wealth. The old mindset of just buying in a good school district or near your job isn't enough anymore when the entire economic foundation of a state is crumbling beneath you. Right? This is my reality check in the comments if you're starting to see your own state through this analytical lens. The fourth factor I analyze obsessively is the regulatory environment, and this is where you can really see the mindset of a state's leadership. How easy is it to actually build new housing? How many hoops do developers have to jump through? How long does it take to get permits approved? Because when building is strangled by endless regulations, supply can't respond to demand, which artificially inflates prices in the short term, but creates massive distortions that eventually implode. And it's not just housing regulations. How easy is it to run a business? How many licenses do you need? How much bureaucratic nonsense do entrepreneurs have to wade through? States that make it nearly impossible to build or do business are essentially putting up a giant sign saying, "We don't want growth here." And the market eventually listens to that message. The fifth critical element is state and municipal debt levels. And this is the hidden time bomb that most people never consider when buying a house. Every state and every city has obligations, pension promises to government workers, infrastructure that needs maintenance, bonds that need to be repaid. When debt levels are manageable and revenue is growing, this isn't a problem. But when debt is massive and the tax base is shrinking, you've got a vicious cycle that accelerates out of control. The government needs more money to service the debt, so they raise taxes. Higher taxes drive more productive people and businesses away. That shrinks the tax base further, creating an even bigger budget hole, so they raise taxes again. And the cycle repeats, spiraling downward until the state becomes economically uninhabitable for anyone with options. When I run all 5 of these factors through my analytical framework, migration patterns, business climate, tax environment, regulatory burden, and debt levels, 5 states emerge from the data as absolute disasters. Every single metric is flashing red like warning. Lights on a dashboard, and I'm telling you right now, buying a house in one of these states isn't making a smart investment decision. It's not even making a neutral decision. It's literally taking your hard-earned money and lighting it on fire while hoping somehow the flames will turn into wealth. It won't happen. But this revelation goes far beyond just real estate markets or individual investment decisions. What we're witnessing is a massive reshuffling of economic power across America that's going to define the next several decades. The states that refuse to adapt, that keep doing the same things that are driving people away, that double down on failed policies because of political ideology or institutional inertia, these places are becoming economic wastelands, not might become, are becoming right now, in real time as we speak. The transformation is fundamentally reshaping the nation's economic geography in ways that most people haven't fully grasped yet. The impact of this shift extends to everything, where Fortune 500 companies locate their headquarters, where venture capital flows, where talented young people choose to build their careers, where retirees decide to spend their golden years. It's a complete reordering of which regions hold economic power and which regions are left behind, struggling with the consequences of decades of poor governance. And your real estate decision puts you on one side of this divide or the other. Type economic migration is real if you're seeing this pattern play out in your community. Before we go any further, I need to make something absolutely clear because I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You're wondering if this is some kind of political attack, if I'm pushing a particular ideology or agenda. So let me cut through that noise immediately. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. I don't care about your political affiliation or which party controls these states. What I care about is whether you're making smart decisions or stupid decisions with your money. That's it. That's the only thing that matters to me. And buying a house in the wrong state right now, regardless of your political beliefs, is a stupid financial decision. Period. The market doesn't vote in elections. The market doesn't have political opinions. The market only responds to economic fundamentals. You also need to put your emotions aside for what I'm about to reveal. I understand that this might be difficult because we're emotional creatures and our connection to place runs deep. Maybe you love the weather in one of these states. Maybe your entire extended family lives there. Maybe you have incredible memories from growing up there. I get it. I really do. But here's the harsh reality you need to accept. The real estate market doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care if you adore the beach or the mountains. It doesn't care if your parents and siblings are nearby. The market only cares about supply and demand. And right now, in these 5 states I'm about to name, demand is dying a slow, painful death. You can either face this reality honestly and protect your wealth, or you can let sentiment cloud your judgment and watch your financial future crumble. Now, let me reveal the first state where you absolutely should not buy real estate. And this one is going to shock some people because of its reputation and history. California. And before the attacks start flooding the comments, let me be perfectly transparent. I love California. I've made an absolute fortune investing in California real estate over the decades. I have deep respect for the state's innovation, its natural beauty, its cultural significance. But that emotional attachment doesn't change the brutal facts I'm about to lay out. If you're a regular person thinking about buying a primary residence in California right now, you're making a catastrophic mistake. The tax burden in California is absolutely crushing your ability to build wealth. State income tax can hit nearly 14% at the top brackets. Then you layer on property taxes, sales taxes that are among the highest in the nation, gas taxes that make filling your tank a financial decision. And what are you getting for all these taxes you're paying? Crumbling roads full of potholes that destroy your car. Failing schools in many districts despite the massive spending, a homelessness crisis that's spiraling completely out of control in major cities, wildfires that are getting worse every single year, threatening entire communities and sending insurance costs through the roof. But the hidden truth that should terrify anyone considering buying California real estate is the migration data. For years now, California has experienced net negative domestic migration. That means more Americans are leaving California than moving in. And who's leaving? Not the wealthy elite who can afford anything. The middle class, the backbone of any economy, is fleeing to Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Nevada. They're tired of being crushed by costs. They're exhausted from fighting traffic and bureaucracy. They're done paying $2 million for a house that would cost $400,000 anywhere else. The transformation happening in California's economic landscape is undeniable. Tech companies that were synonymous with Silicon Valley are opening massive offices in Austin and Miami. Hollywood productions are filming in Georgia and New Mexico because of tax incentives. The state has massive unfunded pension liabilities, hundreds of billions of dollars owed to retired government workers. How do you think they'll pay for that? Higher taxes. And what happens when taxes go up? More people leave. It's a death spiral. Leave a comment saying, "California was my wake-up call," if this is hitting home for you. The second state on my radar is Illinois, and honestly, this one isn't heading toward disaster. It's already there. Illinois is a fiscal catastrophe that's unfolding in real time. We're talking about some of the most punishing property taxes in the entire country. In certain counties, you're paying 2 to 4% of your home's value every single year just in property taxes. Think about what that means practically. You buy a $500,000 house, and you could be writing a check for $15,000 annually just to keep the government from taking it away from you. That's more than many people pay in rent for the entire year. It's absolutely insane. And what's the impact of this crushing tax burden? The population is shrinking as people vote with their feet and flee to states that treat them like valued residents instead of ATM machines. But it's not just individuals leaving. Major corporations have pulled up stakes and relocated their headquarters to business-friendly states. Boeing left, Caterpillar left, Citadel, one of the most successful hedge funds in the world, packed up and moved to Florida. When billionaires are running away from your state as fast as they can, that should tell you everything you need to know about the trajectory. Chicago, which has always been the economic engine driving Illinois, is in serious decline. Crime rates are through the roof in many areas. Businesses are closing their doors. The downtown, which used to pulse with energy and commerce, is deteriorating with vacant storefronts multiplying. And what's the state government's response to? Shrinking revenue? They raise taxes to plug the budget holes, which drives even more people away, which creates bigger holes, which leads to more tax increases. It's the exact same death spiral we saw in California, but it's actually worse because Illinois doesn't have the beautiful weather or the tech industry innovation to fall back on. Now, let me reveal the third state, and this one carries particular weight because of its historical significance and global reputation. New York is committing economic suicide right before our eyes. The taxes are outrageous, the regulations are suffocating, and the attitude toward business is downright hostile. I know New York intimately. I've done business there for decades, but the transformation happening there is undeniable. Thousands of high earners have relocated to Florida, Texas, and Tennessee, states with zero state income tax. Capital is fleeing New York at a pace that should alarm anyone paying attention. The real estate market is being artificially propped up by foreign buyers and people trapped in rent-controlled apartments. But this isn't a sustainable foundation. With remote work becoming permanent for millions of workers, people are having a revelation. They can live anywhere and don't need to pay New York prices and New York taxes. The tax base will continue shrinking as more productive people leave. The state will raise taxes even higher to compensate for lost revenue, and that will push even more people out. You're going to see prices crack in the suburbs, upstate and outer boroughs, as this reality sets in. The fourth state is New Jersey, and the numbers here are just staggering. New Jersey has the highest property taxes in America, not close to the highest, the actual highest. You can buy a modest, ordinary house and find yourself paying $20,000, $30,000, even $40,000 every year just in property taxes alone. That's not your mortgage payment. That's just the tax for the privilege of owning property. In New Jersey, despite being geographically blessed with a location between New York and Philadelphia, the state is dying because residents are exhausted from being taxed to death. They're moving across the border to Pennsylvania, where property taxes are dramatically lower. The hidden truth is that New Jersey's only real value proposition was proximity to New York City for commuters. But remote work has completely eliminated that advantage. If you don't have to be in the office 5 days a week, Why would you voluntarily choose to pay New Jersey's crushing taxes? Business owners I speak with regularly are planning their exits, moving operations to the south and southwest, where they're welcomed instead of punished. And when businesses leave, jobs vanish, and the housing market collapses under its own weight. Comment, I'm making the move, if you're already planning your escape from one of these states. The fifth and final state is Connecticut, and this one serves as a perfect case study of what happens when a state makes terrible policy decisions consistently over decades. Connecticut used to be genuinely wealthy, a powerhouse of insurance companies, financial services firms, and manufacturing. But year after year, the state government kept raising taxes and piling on regulations until the businesses that created all that prosperity decided they'd had enough and left. General Electric, once synonymous with American industrial might, moved out. Aetna relocated. Countless hedge funds and financial firms packed up their operations and headed straight to Florida, where they're welcomed with open arms and zero state income tax. The expensive real estate in places like Fairfield County existed for one primary reason. Wealthy New Yorkers lived there as a way to escape New York City taxes while still being close enough to commute when necessary. But the transformation brought by remote work has completely eliminated that value proposition. Why would anyone choose to stay in Connecticut paying high property taxes, high state income taxes, and enduring winters that last half the year when they can live in Florida or Texas with zero state income tax, beautiful weather, and a thriving business community? The migration patterns tell the devastating story. Connecticut's population has been flat to declining for years. Young people graduate from college and immediately leave because there are no job opportunities that match what they can find elsewhere. Wealthy retirees, the people who actually pay most of the taxes, are relocating to avoid the crushing tax burden. What's left behind is a shrinking tax base, trying desperately to support a massive state government and unfunded pension obligations that grow larger every year. The math simply doesn't work, and eventually the real estate market will reflect this harsh reality. So now you're probably asking the obvious question: if these 5 states are financial disasters waiting to happen, where should you actually be looking? Where does the data point toward opportunity instead of catastrophe? Let me give you the framework for identifying states worth your investment capital. I look for positive net migration, people moving in, not fleeing. I want to see businesses actively relocating their operations to the state, not abandoning it. A business-friendly tax environment matters enormously, and I'm not saying zero taxes, but reasonable taxes that don't punish success. Government living within its means, instead of accumulating debt that will become future tax bombs. And real job creation in the private sector, not just government employment that drains resources. When I apply this analytical lens across America, several states emerge as clear winners. Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Arizona, and North Carolina are doing the exact opposite of everything that's destroying California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. They've embraced low or zero state income tax. Their regulations are reasonable and business-friendly. They're attracting companies and talented people at an accelerating rate. The journey these states are on is the mirror image of the death spiral happening elsewhere. However, and this is critical, timing still matters even in winning markets. Because everyone recognizes these states are hot, prices have risen significantly in many areas. Some markets have appreciated so rapidly that they've gotten ahead of fundamentals, so you can't just blindly buy anywhere in these states without doing careful research. But here's the crucial difference in mindset you need to understand. If you buy in a growing state with strong fundamentals, even if you overpay slightly in the short term, the demographic trends, economic growth, and migration patterns are working in your favor. Over time, those tailwinds will bail you out. But if you buy in a dying state, even if you get what seems like an amazing deal, you're swimming against a powerful current that will exhaust you. Financially, no matter how hard you fight, right following the growth, if you're ready to align your investments with winning states. Look, if you've made it this far, you're clearly someone who takes their financial future seriously. You're not looking for get-rich-quick schemes or comfortable lies that make you feel good, but leave your wallet empty. You're here because you want the truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable. And that's exactly what this channel is about, giving you the data-driven insights you need to make intelligent decisions with your money in a world that's changing faster than most people realize. So here's what I'd ask of you. If this analysis opened your eyes to something you hadn't considered before, if it gave you a different lens through which to evaluate your real estate decisions, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Not because I need the numbers, but because you need this kind of straight-talk financial analysis on a regular basis. The economic transformation we're living through isn't going to slow down, and you deserve to stay ahead of the curve instead of getting crushed by it. And leave me a comment saying, "Wealth protection is my priority, so I know you made it all the way through." It helps me understand that this kind of deep analytical content is valuable to you. And honestly, it's encouraging to know there are people out there who are willing to look at hard truths instead of burying their heads in the sand. If you found this helpful, hit that like button. It's a simple gesture, but it tells me we're on the same wavelength when it comes to protecting and building wealth through intelligent decision-making rather than hope and wishful thinking. Now, this conversation doesn't end here. I've got another video that dives into exactly where you should be deploying your capital in this new economic landscape, the specific markets within those winning states that offer the best risk-to-reward ratios. Click on it and let's continue this journey together. I'll see you there.